Hello wannabe mechanics! In this longer episode we are going to show you how to replace the timing belt, the serpentine belt, the water pump, the idler pulleys and the tensioner pulleys on your car. This tutorial is specially created for beginners, so we added more checking methods so you can be sure you didn't miss anything. In the beginning of the episode we will learn a bit about the role of accessory belts and timing belts, when to replace them and how to know if they are failing. We chose an Opel Astra J with a 1.7 CDTI engine for the tutorial because there aren't any components blocking the view and we could illustrate every step. Doing this operation yourself instead of going to a repair shop will help you save up quite some money, and because it is more complex than other operations, the satisfaction will be huge. Don't go anywhere guys, meet you back in the shop right after our short intro. Thank you very much for watching. Use the comments section for any questions or suggestions, and if you find our videos interesting, make sure you subscribe for the latest wannabe mechanic videos. Bye bye. So, what is the difference between the accessory or serpentine belt and the timing belt or forgotten belt? The accessory belt is usually used to drive the alternator, the air conditioning compressor, and the power steering. On some engines, and also on our engine, it also drives the water pump. The accessory belt is driven by the crankshaft through a pulley. It is tensioned by a belt tensioner and guided by idler pulleys. On the other hand, the timing belt is placed behind the serpentine belt under a protective cover. The timing belt synchronizes the rotation of the crankshaft and the camshaft so that the engine's valves open and close at the proper time during each cylinder's intake and exhaust strokes. It also has a belt tensioner and idler pulleys. If the timing belt breaks or is simply worn out, then the engine loses timing and the pistons can end up bending the valves. Piston might crack, or even the camshafts can bend, creating massive damage that will require serious and costly repairs. Serpentine belts can last as long as 80,000 kilometers or 50,000 miles and might need replacing every 4 to 6 years, but there are a lot of variables like temperature, humidity, and especially its composition. The best part about the serpentine belt is that you can always do a visual check as it is in plain sight. Ideally, however, you should replace the accessory belt at the interval specified by the car's manufacturer in the service manual. Some of the signs that your accessory belt needs to be replaced are squealing sounds, power steering and AC not working, engine overheating if the water pump is driven by the serpentine belt, cracks and wear on the belt, and dead battery. It's important to replace your timing belt at the mileage intervals your vehicle manufacturer recommends. Every manufacturer is different, but typically the timing belt needs to be replaced every 60,000 or 100,000 miles. The recommended interval for your specific vehicle can be found in your car owner's manual, and because it is harder to do a visual inspection of the timing belt,
samurai sword on my back. You don't know how to act. Maybe you should relax. Maybe you should relapse. Just kidding. Stop. Woo. Woo. Stop.
Remove the dowels holding the inner fender. And then remove the inner fender. Use a jack stand to suspend the engine by the oil pan so you can take out the engine mount. Use a 50mm socket and an extender to remove the bolts from the engine mount. Normally, to loosen the accessory belt tensioner and take out the belt, you just have to pull the pulleys bolt clockwise with a 50mm socket, but we realized the tensioner was broken. On this engine, the accessory belt drives the pulley of the AC compressor, the pulley of the water pump, and down there the pulley of the alternator. Of course, the one doing all the work is the engine's crankshaft pulley. We tried using a power tool to remove the pulley's bolt, but that didn't work either. You will see how damaged the tensioner was a bit later when we take it out. We then decided to remove an idler pulley with a 50mm socket to get the belt off. Take off the engine cover and use a 10mm socket to remove the bolts holding the timing belt cover. Use a 16mm socket to remove the 3 bolts holding the engine mount stand to the engine block. Then use a 13mm and a 14mm socket for this metal bracket. Remove the rest of the 10mm bolts on the timing belt cover. Take out the large plastic cover and the metal plate for the engine mount stand. Apply some WD-40 before trying to remove the 4 12mm bolts holding the crankshaft pulley. Our pulley did not come out, not even after using a small hammer. Eventually, we had to use a universal extractor to pull out the pulley. Then remove this lower plastic cover using the 10mm socket to get to the timing belt. Now you can take out the smaller plastic cover. With everything out of the way, we can now see the camshaft sprocket. This engine has just one camshaft where others may have two. Also, there are engines with two camshafts but just one sprocket for the timing belt. The high pressure fuel pump sprocket, the oil pump sprocket, and the crankshaft sprocket. Take out the small plastic cover. You can loosen the bolts on the water pump's pulley before removing the serpentine belt, which should keep the pulley in place. Because the end of the water pump's shaft was rusted, simply tapping it with a small hammer wasn't enough. We used a large flathead screwdriver as a lever to take it out. Now there is enough room for you to use a T50 to remove the serpentine's belt tensioner. And here is why the tensioner was stuck. It had a huge crack and you can even see the inner spring. This is why it's better to buy the whole assembly instead of just the tensioner's pulley. Also, sometimes it is very hard to remove the bolt of the pulley. Luckily, the owner heard squealing sounds and decided to replace the belt before the recommended service interval. The new belt tensioner is already locked in position by this guiding pin. Place a large container under the water pump and remove the 5 12mm bolts holding it in place. This is where the 5 bolts were located. Apply a thin layer of grease on both sides of the seal. That will prevent corrosion but also help place it in the right position and hold it there. Then apply some on the water pump. Place the seal on the water pump. Remove any excess grease because it may form clots in the cooling liquid and block the small openings in the engine. Use a thin blade to remove any rust or debris before mounting the water pump. Install the new water pump, thread the bolts and torque them up to 24 Nm if you own a torque wrench. If you can, remove the dust using compressed air. If you want, you can keep this protection plate in place, but if you take it out, you will have better access. A guiding pin will help you place it in the same position. Use a 24 mm socket to rotate the crankshaft clockwise until the notch in the camshaft sprocket aligns with the mark in the oil pump's housing. The camshaft pulley has an opening which should correspond to the opening in the engine block. When they align, insert an M6 bolt to lock it in place. The same thing applies to the fuel pump's pulley, which you can lock using an M8 bolt. For beginners, it is important that you now use the marking method. This implies using different markings for each sprocket. You will see later how much this can help you. As an example, we draw a dot on the side of the sprocket, one on the side of the belt and one on the plastic cover behind it, all connected by a dotted line along the belt. For the high-pressure fuel pump, we used corresponding marks on the fuel pump sprocket, the side of the belt and the plastic element. Also, you can draw a line over the notch of the crankshaft sprocket to see it better, and more signs on the opposite side of the notch, on the crankshaft sprocket and on the belt. Loosen up the bolts from the belt tensioner and the idler pulley. Take out the idler pulley. Take out the belt tensioner. And now you can take out the timing belt. Place the two timing belts on top of each other and draw the sign for the camshaft sprocket. Align the teeth of both belts without missing any of them and draw the corresponding signs for the crankshaft sprocket and the fuel pump sprocket. Important note, the timing belt is much more rigid than the serpentine belt, so try not to twist it or bend it. Always double check that the signs correspond. To place the new belts the right way, remember you should be able to read the writings on the outer body. Install the timing belt, aligning the marks and fixing the belt to the sprockets. Normally, the installing order of the timing belt is the one shown, starting from the crankshaft sprocket and going clockwise over the oil pump sprocket, the high pressure fuel pump sprocket, and then the camshaft sprocket, but because we used marks it was much easier and order was not important. Install the new belt tensioner without tightening with the bolt. Make sure the notch is still aligned with the arrow on the oil pump. With the retaining bolt still loose, insert an Allen key into the hexagon hole and rotate counterclockwise. After rotating it, tighten the bolt and insert the timing belt. Now we can install the idler pulley. One more check before releasing the timing belt tensioner. Now you can loosen the bolt and the tensioner will apply tension to the timing belt due to its inner spring system. Very important, use the Allen key to counterhold while tightening the bolt of the tensioner's pulley because you don't want it to rotate and apply more tension on the belt. It has to stay in the same position after it has been released. If you want, you can even take a picture of it and make sure that the hexagon hole is the same position. Time to apply the final tightening torque, 49 Nm for the tensioner's bolt and 80 Nm for the idle pulleys bolt. You can now remove the locking bolts. As a final check, you just have to spin the crankshaft until the signs on the side of the sprockets realign with the ones on the plastic cover and you are able to insert the locking bolts again. The signs on the belt do not matter now because it would take a lot of revolutions for all the markings to realign. As you can see, the markings correspond on each sprocket. And also the locking bolts go in with ease, so the timing belt has been correctly replaced. If the tensioner is a manual belt tensioner, you will most likely have to adjust its position after rotating the crankshaft. In our case, this is a spring-loaded belt tensioner which doesn't require any adjustments. Time to put everything back. Place the metal plate back on, in the same position for the sensor to read the exact position of the camshaft or the car won't start. As I said earlier, a guiding pin on the sprocket will align with an opening on the plate. The small lower plastic cover of the timing belt, the metal plate for the engine's mount stand, the timing belt's large plastic cover, the water pumps pulley, and the small metal bracket. Time to place the crankshaft's pulley. The pulley has a guiding pin which will fit into an opening on the sprocket. Torque the bolts up to 20 Nm. Install the engine mount stand. Then the belt tensioner. After placing the belt around the alternator's pulley, you will have to release the locking pin. Time for the accessory belt. Don't forget you have to be able to read the writing. This is where the sketch we made in the beginning of the video comes in handy. Don't forget to mount the idle pulley. You will have to apply great strength to loosen up the tensioner, so we recommend you use a long brake bar with a 50mm socket rather than a wrench. Then insert the belt over the alternator's pulley, take out the locking pin on the tensioner and release the tensioner's pulley. If the wear signs left on the stand do not align, just lower or raise the engine from underneath until they do. Now we can apply the final torque of 62 Nm and lower the engine. Put the air filter's housing back in place. Insert the MAF connector. And then tighten the color clamps. Remove the dirt off the inner fender so it can slide in easily and lock it in place. Placing the splash shields and inserting the dowels is easy to do, so we are not going to show that part. Because we replaced the water pump, we had to add some coolant liquid. The ratio between distilled water and antifreeze liquid depends on the season and manufacturer, so you will have to check the label for that information. Remember, you will have to check the level again after taking the car for a spin and add more liquid. Place the wheel back on, thread the lug nuts, lower the car, apply a torque of 140 Nm to the lug nuts, and you are done. Thank you very much for watching. Use the comments section for any questions or suggestions, and if you find our videos interesting, make sure you subscribe for the latest wannabe mechanic videos. Bye bye.